But so we're starting here with Nancy Rust, Carol Stubbs, and Melissa Vandiver. Did I say all the names right?
Vandiver. It's answer to Vandiver.
What is it?
It's Vandiver, but I answer to
Vandiver. Okay, I hadn't heard it spoken before, so I'll let you guys.
Well, I've been saying it wrong.
Correct people.
So I will let you guys take it from here.
So,
Whoever wants to start.
I will start with Carol and I have been writing for 10 years together. And this is our 4th published book. Is that right, Carol?
will be, yeah. That's amazing. They're mounting up, yeah.
And anyway, Carol was the one who had the idea for this book. And so Carol, you want to tell about that?
Well, so the idea for the book, which is about what's commonly called the Katrina Rose, came, I was working as an editor for a small news magazine in South Louisiana, and so I met Peggy Martin, who is this is based on a true story, so this is her story really, and that was in 2007 that I met her, and I wrote 2 stories on her, and we became good friends. But the basis of her story is that she lived in a little town called Phoenix in South Louisiana. She had a beautiful garden, she loved roses, and she lived next door to her parents, and she one day somebody gave her a cutting of a rose from an abandoned house. She planted it by an old shed, and it covered the shed, it took over, but she was wanted to find out the name of the rose. The name, nobody knew what it was, where it came from, and all these old roses that she grows have names, but this one didn't. So she was constantly looking. She was real active in rose societies and things like that. Well, then in August 2005, Hurricane Katrina hit the area, and it took away everything from her, including her parents. They died. Her garden was gone, her house was gone. The garden was under 20 feet of salt water for 2 weeks. So everything gone. But when she came back, finally able to go back to her home to look over everything, she sees this little spot of green, and the only thing living is this one rose that was growing by the shed, a little bit left of it. And so that rose became a symbol of hope for the whole area, surprisingly. I mean, you can Google it and see the story. And it was even used as a fundraiser. Cuttings were sold from it, and Peggy's friends rallied around her. They sent her roses to plant in her new home, which is now Gonzales, and sent her rose books and just lifted her spirits and got her back. And so we love the story. The rose, people from all over the country have bought that rose, and it's growing in their yard and gardens. And so we've always loved the story. I always loved the story. And when I told it to Nancy, fortunately, she loved it too. So we started visiting Peggy and, got her on board that we wanted to write a children's story about it. But the problem was, how do you do that? So that, Nancy, you want to tell them how we kind of put it together for that?
Well, of course, once we decided we wanted to do a children's book, we had some options, and we did not come to this easily. We struggled with many different beginnings and finally decided that the best thing to do is a picture book, because with the picture book, it can show things that we can't say. And so we always have these questions that we ask ourselves when we start with a children's book. Is the main character a good example for children to read about? Is the main character somebody that you want them to emulate? And is there an element of surprise in the story? Can we tell the story in a way that would interest children? And is there a message in the story that is good for children? And then last, we usually try to make sure that there are elements in the book that will support use in the classroom. And we determined that the story of the rose was all of this, but then we had like a real problem of coming up with the main character. And Carol, you might want to tell about that because we ended up with doing something pretty unusual.
Well, we told it from every angle to ourselves, you know, using Peggy as the character, but then she was a grown woman, so that was hard. But we ended up deciding the rose is the character. And then, fortunately, we found Melissa who could make that rose be a character, you know, which was a real, now I can't believe it. I'm thinking, how do you make a rose a character? There are all kinds of, it's very hard. So does it have a face? Does it not have a face? How do you make it respond? There were, you know, and Dawn knows too, because we were working with her about, you know, how do we do this, make this character come to life, you know, to be in for a child. So I don't know, Melissa, you want to tell them how you kind of faced that?
Well, I did what I normally do, which is try to take somebody's verbal wishes and just put them on paper and be like, is this what you want? Is this what you want? Is this what you want? You know, I believe I did 3 or 4 kind of test concepts for you guys to look at, and 1 or 2 of them had a face, and some of them were real.
We did, yeah.
Word. And anyway, and it's I think we got this close to putting a face on it, and then came back, but I had to really think about body language. The way the Peggy Martin Rose looks is almost like an octopus. I looked at octopuses, like octopi. Anyway, octopuses, and like was like, okay, when a cartoon octopus is happy, they're kind of like, you know, their shoulders are up, and I thought about all these things, and so it was giving an octopus's body language to a plant is basically how I went about it.
Yeah, and then we did use we did bring in other animals to hopefully show some of that too. So, so I don't. You want to show one of your videos and show how Melissa does these amazing fast action videos to show how she draws, and I love them. So.
I've got it pulled up.
There you got it. Yeah.
Hey, it's going.
Yeah. There.
There we go.
Anyway, I do time with the GoPro while I paint, mostly because when I'm trying to fall asleep at night, I started watching other artists do this to relax. So I started doing it, and then everybody who hires me to do anything asks me about it. So now I make a point to always film. And the problem is sometimes you see all the mistakes, so you're going to see it look done, and then you're going to see after Carol and Nancy came back, we're going to make some changes. But yeah, it's just kind of about if you want to, you know, look at it. So this is like 2 minutes long, so I don't know if we want to keep talking, but.
No, I love watching
keep
it.
talking while it's going. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. And so you see, here's the rose, the octopus rose.
That's what I kept thinking though when I saw it. I'm like, it looks like an octopus.
So,
So
but
it's
that
a
was the
climbing
hardest.
rose. So it's a climbing rose.
It is, and it has clusters of blooms, so it's not like a rose with a single bloom where you could put a face. You know, it's a little easier. Yeah. You've got blooms all over it, so it made it a little bit harder to characterize. And
I was gonna say, I don't remember if this made it into whatever I showed you at the beginning, but I had some idea to try to make the impression of a face out of shadows, which just did not work at all. But
yes, I
remember seeing one of those because that was kind of creepy.
it haunted. Yeah. Like, I'm not sure a ghost is what we're going for here. They told me, oh no, it needs to be thinned out, so I thinned out the arms a little, or I guess they're not arms, but anyway, and that's the
the stems.
For a live plant, you could call them arms.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and then there you go. Hey.
Yeah. but I love watching the process because it is such an important part, you know, to have the bringing that character to life. And then she put in the little decorative piece in the garden. I don't know if you can see that. That was actually in Peggy Martin's garden. So we kind of got that symbolized little thing to put in there. And then yeah.
This right here.
Yeah, that whatever you call it.
Oh, okay.
A little thing, yeah. So anyway.
And she was able to, without our going through and explaining all of this, old-fashioned roses come in so many colors. And notice she has lots and lots of color in the garden. And so we don't have to, you know, take a child through a long explanation of how roses come in many colors. And instead they can just look and see it so much better. And the original rose that was planted by, it was planted by a shed or a tractor, a building that held a tractor, I believe. And it was so large that it covered the whole roof, I think.
And we, so Nancy and I have been to Peggy's house in Gonzales, where she has, you know, built another garden, and she has the Peggy Martin, well, in fact, we have a picture in the book, but the Peggy Martin rose across the fence, and it is spectacular. And she said people drive down the street and they stop to look at it. It's really big and beautiful. So.
Because I haven't looked
It's
at
kind
that.
of interesting, I think, the way Melissa used color too, because that part of the garden was such a happy time. And then, of course, the happy time went away. And
know that after one
yeah,
of
Yeah.
even the during, do you have the storm one?
They're all out of order, but I'll get it.
Okay.
Here, I was going to share the picture of Peggy with her rose real quick.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
There's the storm approaching.
Let's see. There we go. There's
Yeah.
that.
Okay, wait, let's see. Yeah, we have
Guys.
Peggy.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And so
Yeah,
that
You can
rose
see,
stretches.
Jack, notice how those flowers are clustered together and not a single bloom.
yeah.
Yeah.
Can you tell from the picture?
You kind of can. Yeah.
I think you can.
Yeah.
But of course, it's hard for us because we see the real thing. So, but if you'll notice toward the bottom, you can see that the flowers are all clustered together.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you have the storm.
Yeah, this is the storm approaching area. There's no rose in this picture. I don't know if you can see.
If you will notice, like that, you can see that the storm looks threatening with the darker colors on the right side. So, you know, it's going from like this happy yellow place to the dark stormy place on the right upper corner.
And for those of us who watched a hurricane come at us, that's what it looks like.
That is what it looks like.
And you've had plenty of those this year to get reacquainted
Boy,
with them,
did
right?
we? Yeah, we certainly saw it. Yeah.
Almost every house on my street is either getting a new roof or has a blue tarp waiting for the roof.
So here's the storm. Here's the garden flooded. You can see the shed and the roses blowing all over the place.
Yeah.
Arms kind of everywhere. The colors are, it's just like white fuzz everywhere. And then after, this is what we have left of that garden.
Yeah. So, and yeah, just to imagine water being over something for 2 weeks, salt water, it would be pretty much that, you know, that nothing there.
Peggy did talk about that, about how even in her house, there was this dark brown stuff that covered everything.
Muddy.
It was bad. But,
mud and straw, I think. She said there was straw mixed with it too.
Yeah,
Oh.
I remember seeing relatives that lost stuff, and then I remember seeing it. It was awful. It was just awful. It's just a eerie scene when you have things there and then nothing there, and just horrible stuff, you know. So, but then the rose comes back, so it doesn't end, you know, with the terribleness. But and we thought the animals were really important, and we chose them for two reasons. We thought the animals were important. One, they're beneficial to any garden, and Peggy's big on organic gardening, so we kind of wanted to use that. And then they are the encouragement for the rose. We kind of use them as the, you know, to help the rose get back, I won't say back on its feet because it doesn't have feet, but put its roots down.
Here's the dragonflies after she's started coming back.
Yes.
The dragonflies are off hollering that, oh, things are going to be okay. Well, you know.
You know, if you think of Peggy's garden as a microcosm of the real world, and even if you think of the Rose and Peggy together, as Carol was telling you, her friends came and helped her come back, and she was very depressed, as you can imagine.
She
and
was.
Without the Rose and the Rose people, you know, her story may not have been as happy as it is. Even though, of course, I mean, you can't undo the tragedy of it. But the little animals were encouragers just the same way that her friends were. So in a lot of ways, they are symbolic of her real life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we felt. And then it was kind of fun to look up the different symbolism for the animals and the different things they bring to the garden. You know, like the dragonflies are kind of among the first ones to come back after a hurricane because they eat mosquitoes. So, and the mosquitoes are probably the first after a big rain or a hurricane. So.
And they blow in from everywhere. They come, yes, when the hurricane goes away, you're left with a lot of mosquitoes.
Yes. So anyway.
Okay. And then I think the other thing that you said you wanted to talk about a little bit was how you can use the book in the classroom.
Yes.
So I don't know.
Well, actually, we see several ways. One thing, a lot of classes discuss weather, and we have the hurricane.
Mm-hmm.
Many in the curriculum, there is a plant, and so we do have the parts of the plant. We have the insects and the frog. We have a butterfly, which of course has metamorphosis, and the frog is an amphibian that goes from the tadpole to the frog. So for all of those aspects, it's pretty easy. And then you can also do activities that would show the surge and how the wind brings in the surge from the hurricane, which is the most dangerous part of a hurricane, really, in most instances, is that more people die from the water than from the wind.
Frightening.
Yeah. It is. It's very scary.
Very frightening when you think of 20 or 30 feet rise in the ocean.
Yeah, that is really scary when you think about it.
And then, I mean, there's also creative and critical thinking that can be used with it. For example, on the idea of names. I mean, children come in and of course they know they have names and everybody they know has a name, but here are the roses with names, and the hurricanes have names. So, you know, you could do critical or creative thinking activities with what else has a name and besides people and hurricanes and roses. You have stars and planets and buildings and all kinds of things have a name. And then you could actually do some critical thinking on like, what does a name do? I mean, why would you give it a name? What does a name do for something? And how do you feel when you don't have a name? You know,
Yeah.
all of us have been in situations where we felt that we didn't have a name, and children are there too. And so, you know, the rose was without a name. How does it make you feel to be without a name? So there are a lot of ways it can be used in the class.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Okay. Jack, do you have any questions for that?
No, I didn't realize that the what the name of the book was.
Oh, okay.
Nancy and Carol, when you started talking about the book, I thought, okay, when are they going to tell me what the name is?
Oh, gosh.
That was a very good
Minor detail.
Oh, we
Yeah.
didn't show that. I put it in the chat, but I didn't put it here.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
It's
yeah.
the
Okay.
rose without a name. And so actually, Jack, there are kind of two stories in the book. The major story is the rose. The first problem the rose has is the rose wants a name. And in the end, the rose does get a name. But of course, we have the survival story inside the book too. So really, there are almost two stories in one with it.
Yeah.
But
There it
our
is.
working title is The
there.
Rose Without a Name.
So,
Yeah, it's The Rose Without a Name, and of course it's the story of the Katrina Rose is the
Is what they finally named it?
subtitle. That's the subtitle or secondary, but The
Yeah.
Rose Without a Name is the actual name of the book itself.
mhm.
And when does it come out?
Comes out in May.
May? Okay.
Mhm. Yeah. So if you know anyone who's interested in this, I do have ARCs
For what-
available.
What
If any-
age group is it aimed at?
This one's about second, third grade.
Okay.
Yep. So anything else? I know I just got an alert that we're getting close to time. So
Okay. Well, we're excited about it. I will say that we're excited about the story and bringing it all together, the art and the words and the whole thing, and excited about the possibilities.
yeah, I think
Carol
it'll
and
do well.
Nancy, is
Yeah.
this the first book you've published with Dawn?
This is
Yes.
the first book we
Oh, okay.
published with Dawn.
Yes, we're excited about that.
She has been
There's a
great.
possi-
I mean, she really has just been so helpful to us.
Yeah, it has been. Yeah, it's been a good experience. So,
Mhm.
and with Melissa, that's been great. So,
Yes, and this is also the first book that Melissa's illustrated for us. I mean,
Yeah,
this has been
yeah.
such a positive experience in all directions once Carol and I got ourselves together till we knew what kind of manuscript we actually wanted to have. And we had, I don't know, how many, before we showed Dawn, how many do you think we had? 20, 30?
Oh, I don't know. It was quite a few.
no, we have a whole string of them. Yeah, and Melissa.
And
Melissa
Dawn
has
helped
other
us
books,
with the final product, of course.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I saw, I think a real early one. I'm like, no, this is age too high for a picture book. And then, the back and forth of bring the age down and then where do we want it to be and the words and the flow. And yeah, it was a lot of back and forth. I don't remember how many versions we had.
It's a process. It really is when you're
Mhm.
doing. You have a story you want to tell, but there's so many ways you can tell it. So, yeah.
Yeah, and a picture book is so hard because you have so few words. And
Yes,
as you can tell from listening to us, we're not people of few words.
Right.
I'll tell you, I felt like you had a great amount of words from my perspective. A lot of books that are really text heavy, and I'm like, where am I supposed to fit all this stuff?
There's a few pages that are like, wait, this is a little bit much, but we made it work.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing compared to some of what I've done. So.
Yeah, Melissa's done a couple other books illustrated, so she's got quite the range of illustration history.
My first one where a flower is the character.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So,
Okay.
Is
Anything else you want to
Dawn,
add? Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to add, is Melissa doing the illustrations for my book, or?
No, she is not. No,
Oh,
I have
somebody else?
I have a group of illustrators that I work with.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and they actually wanted a local illustrator so she could see the rows and know the countryside and everything else. So
Melissa's in Louisiana also?
yeah, yes.
Okay.
We wanted a Louisiana person, I guess.
yeah. Well, it's such a Louisiana story. It really, it just is central here because of the hurricane and all that. So anyway, that's the way it worked out, you know.
Yep.
We have our own little quirks.
Yeah, I know. I've got a brother that lives in Louisiana, and I know his wife and the kids, you know. So
Where are they? What part? There.
it's just south of Baton Rouge in Manny, if you know where
Manny,
that is.
yeah.
Okay, they live in Manny.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's a good area.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll stop it here then. And thank you for being here. And we'll see you tomorrow for another version of this, I guess.
That's right. Same time, I guess.
We're
Yep, same time even.
We tell the name of the book right away.
Yes,
Yeah, I'll have it up on the
First thing
screen
we'll
first
do.
before we start. How about that?
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Jack.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, I was,
Bye,
you know,
everybody. See you
Okay, thank you.
tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
yeah.
Bye, thanks.